I agree.
I think they need a certain amount of oversight also.
I don't disagree with that, but I guess I go back to, I'm not a cop, and the police chief that put this into place was, and it was a regional thing. Now, I think what you're saying is it ought to be relooked at, and that's something you can definitely pass on to the police chief. I'm not sure he's here tonight, but.
Mr. Hugler, what I'll do is I'll visit with the police chief and share that this concern was brought before myself and the city board, and we will follow up with you as soon as possible.
I'll be keeping an eye on it.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate you. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda.
A resolution is set June 4th, 2019 as the date of a public hearing on the appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of a revised conditional use permit titled Word of Outreach Prayer Garden, revised conditional use permit located at 2700 Brown Street in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. A resolution is set June 4th, 2019 as the date of a public hearing on the appeal of the Planning Commission's denial of a planned zoning development titled 1103 Ringo Airbnb short form PCD located at 1103 Ringo Street in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize an increase to the contract amount for Hoff and Marler Associates, Inc. For additional engineering design services in an amount not to exceed $25,883.65 to authorize a new project for Chenal Parkway at Chenal Valley Drive and for other purposes. Funding from the 2012 3/8 capital improvement sales tax and the 2013 limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution to award a professional engineering services contract to Jacobs Engineering Group in an amount not to exceed $77,415 for river trail improvements east of the Union Pacific Railroad pedestrian bridge and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Maggie Ford in an amount not to exceed $58,630 for the purchase of two Ford F-250 crew cab 4x4 ton trucks for the Public Works Department, Street Operations Division, and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Deere & Company in an amount not to exceed $86,963.04 for the purchase of two John Deere 507 5E utility tractors for the Parks and Recreation Department and for other purposes. A resolution to express the willingness of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas to utilize federal aid transportation alternative program funds and to authorize the city manager to execute any and all necessary agreements and contracts for its administration and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute any documents necessary to enter into an option to purchase approximately 66 acres of land near Fletcher Road at the Little Rock Port and for other purposes. That's consent agenda.
There's been a motion and a second, but prior to the vote, Director Hendricks, you have a question?
Yes, I do have. Thank you. On number 1, I would like for the Planning Commission to come to the mic.
Yes, Mr. Collins.
I need your help on resolution number 1. Can you explain, and this is my first experience in the ward of having this type resolution, can you explain why the bathroom cannot be put in place? Is it a health reason? I've got so many calls.
Director Hendricks, the reason that we did not support and the Plan Commission voted against this was that was also the installation of the bathroom, but other things that was added to the prayer garden that essentially made it more of people wanted to stay there longer. The whole time that this went through the first time for the Planning Commission was more for the homeless wanting to, we was worried about if it was left open and it was covered, that type of development.
Hendricks, if I could, this resolution is only to set the date for the public hearing. It's not for or against the
Yeah, I
proposal.
know. I can read, Tom.
Okay.
I know that. But
I mean-
my question is, I want to know what to tell those persons who have called, and the person that's responsible is here today.
Yeah, it was not a health issue. per se, at the health department. It was an occupancy and a use issue of that starting to get more of a permanent type of scenario.
Is there anything
whereas-
that could be eliminated in order for that bathroom to be there? Is it, you mentioned about all the other things that are there?
Well, if the applicant at this point chose to eliminate that specific item on that, then it would be deemed we would say that that was a new application and would need to go back through the process again.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Hendricks. There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Director Hines, would you like to entertain a motion for item number 11?
Yes, Mayor. I think Vice Mayor Wyrick and I would just like to have a little bit of info before we read this on the maps. When we tried to go in and look at the maps through FEMA's website, it's
You referring to ordinance number?
ordinance number 11.
Is there a motion to separate ordinance number 11 from the group item?
Mayor, we don't have to separate. If they could, if they could just give the maps, and I just had a question about notification.
Sure thing.
So this would be public, I guess, Mr. Honeywell.
Mr. Honeywell?
John, do we have the ability to see these maps here?
I do not believe
'Cause I hit that link for the FEMA website, Director Wyrick and I did, and to try to figure out what areas you're doing it. It's like navigating the GIS system if you don't use it. So
I understand. These maps were for specific locations. They were for Rock Creek. It was for Grassy Flat North, Colony West, and State Capitol Drain are the four
Right,
locations.
but Rock
that they
Creek
mapped.
runs from West Little Rock all the way to Fouche, so,
Right, so we.
and Grassy Flat's a pretty large area.
Sure.
The other question is, and I'll let you try to kill two with one stone, have all of the property owners that are in, out, being moved in, and the ones being moved out been notified? Is that part of the process with this?
I can't tell you that every single property owner that is along this entire stretch of all these was notified. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Well, what about the 120 that are being moved into the floodplain and
They
the
should have-
375 that are being moved out?
They should be notified.
Okay, all right. Who does the notification, us or FEMA or?
That I don't know. I can find out for you.
Okay, all right. I think our issue is making sure folks know and have been given notice on this. So,
And we can definitely follow up on that once the maps are accepted and make sure those that are directly affected by the change in the maps, we can ensure that they're notified.
okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Grassy Flat and Rock Creek.
Thank you. Yeah,
What would you like to be,
Just when the maps are ready, just
Okay.
send so that I can see.
that's all the questions I have. I'm fine with leaving it as a grouped item.
Thank you, Director Hines. Director Wright, did you have a question?
Well, it wasn't about that one, Mayor. It was about 12. Item 12. What is that exactly? I don't recall. I've slept since then.
Yeah, I believe.
That's the short-term financing for the CAD system
Okay.
and a fire truck.
And the ladder. Yep.
Yes.
The fire truck ladder.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Director Wyrick?
Thank you. Mine was a follow-up from Director Hines, and there's like 300-plus people that are coming out of the floodplain and 125 that are going into it. And I know they're probably paying flood insurance, and my concern was that we had some sort of notification to let those people know about it. I think many times the banks know about the change in floodplain and they'll contact the property owners, but I'm not sure on the reverse if they're coming out of the floodplain. So I just wanted to follow up behind Director Hines and make sure that we had a way or could figure out how they're supposed to be notified, because it's pretty important to folks. Thank you.
Director Wyrick, the board is going to recess tonight until next Tuesday. If the question of what notice has been given or how this will be given would make the board more comfortable, this item could be placed upon that recessed agenda.
I'm happy to go ahead and pass it. I just would like to know how that process works and make sure the people are notified.
We'll get you that information. John, will you make certain we get that information for Directors Wright, Hines, and Vice Mayor Wyrick? Thank you so much. Director Adcock?
12. We usually have a board of communication where we can click on it and find out the amounts and the terms of an ordinance. Mr. James Jones, if you can tell us on 12 the amount of this promissory note?
I believe it's 5.6 million.
5.65 million, I believe, somewhere.
Shep, can you answer that? Is that the exact amount? Or?
Thank you, Chef.
Come to the microphone, please. The people can't hear you when you talk back there. And what interest rate are we paying?
The way these, the city's always done these is these are bid out with banks. And so what the board is authorizing is for bids to be taken and for the mayor to accept the best bid. And so it's a 5-year note. It's not like a bond. And so that's the way these are sold.
And Director Adcock, just to kind of give you just a little brief background, generally when it's done, it's based off of the lowest interest rate from the commercial market perspective. But there, since it is somewhat tax exempt, that's the reason why we're going from this standpoint. I believe prime is somewhere a little bit above 5% at this point in time, and so it'll be somewhere around 5%. It could be a little bit lower, depending on the deposits of the banks, whoever want how sporty or how competitive they want to be, and generally they'll be very competitive at the lowest bid.
Okay, and Mr. Jones, I think you said this was for 2 different items.
Yes, ma'am. It's for the CAD system and for a ladder truck for the fire department.
And how much is for the ladder truck and how much is for the CAD system, please?
The CAD system is, Captain Terrell's a little over $4 million.
Yes,
Mr. Abdul, could you just approach the podium? For everyone, Mr. Abdul is our procurement director.
So we're doing 2.9 million in short-term financing for the CAD system.
Okay.
And we've got the ladder truck would be 650,000.
Okay.
So we've got 650,000 for the ladder truck.
Is that for the new fire station?
That would be, no, that's not
It is
in
not.
this one. We've got renovations on the fire station, number 12, for 300,000.
And that's included in here?
Yes.
Mr. Jones, why are we borrowing money for the fire station when I thought Director Wyrick and I had been told that the money was already available out of the sales tax for that fire station?
Willie, can you address where the fire truck's going?
Mr. Mayor. Director Adcock, the fire truck for the new fire station has already been ordered. It's being paid for out of the 3/8 cents sales tax money.
Okay. So where is this fire truck going?
This is a ladder truck that we have to refurbish. A new ladder truck like that one costs $1.5 million. And we found some defects on the ladder on that truck, so we're going to refurbish it versus buying a new one. And that's what that's for.
And we did not have the money in the sales tax money to pay for this
No,
instead of
ma'am.
financing it?
No, ma'am, we don't.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Hendricks, did you have a question?
It had to do with number 13. Are you there?
We're not there yet. That's for the public hearing, but we'll get there.
Okay.
Any more questions as it relates to the group items 8 through 12? Seeing none, is there a motion? There's a motion and a second.
We haven't read them yet.
We need to read them 3 times.
Sorry about that.
An ordinance to declare it impracticable and unfeasible to bid to award a sole source maintenance agreement with Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $142,139.05, including applicable taxes and fees, to provide a 12-month maintenance plan for the city's radio infrastructure equipment utilized by the Little Rock Police Department, Communications Division, and for other purposes. An ordinance to declare it impracticable and unfeasible to bid to award a sole source maintenance agreement to Motorola Solutions, Inc. in an amount of $206,000, including applicable taxes and fees for repairs and maintenance on existing portable and mobile radios utilized throughout the city and for other purposes. An ordinance to declare it impracticable and unfeasible to bid to award a sole source agreement to Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $135,439, including applicable taxes and fees to upgrade the software and hardware of the Little Rock Police Department Communications Division, NICE Inform Recorder, and for other purposes. An ordinance to amend Chapter 13, Article 2, 1351E5 of the Revised Code of Ordinances of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to provide for the adoption by reference of the June 7, 2019 flood insurance study and flood insurance rate maps to be administered by the City of Little Rock as the effective maps, to declare an emergency, and for other purposes. An ordinance to authorize the issuance of promissory note to provide short-term financing under amendment number 78 to the Arkansas Constitution for the acquisition, construction, and installation of real property and tangible personal property, prescribing other matters pertaining thereto, to declare an emergency, and for other purposes. First reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules for a second reading. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Madam Clerk, second reading, please.
An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid toward award a sole source maintenance agreement with Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $142,139.05, including applicable taxes and fees, to provide a 12-month maintenance plan for the city's radios, infrastructure, equipment utilized by the Little Rock Police Department Communications Division, and for other purposes. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to award a sole source maintenance agreement to Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $206,000, including applicable taxes and fees for repairs and maintenance on existing portable and mobile radios utilized throughout the city. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to award a sole source agreement to Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $135,439, including applicable taxes and fees to upgrade the software and hardware of the Little Rock Police Department Communication Division's NICE Inform Recorder. An ordinance to amend Chapter 13, Article 2, 1351E5 of the Revised Code of Ordinances of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to provide the adoption by reference of the June 7, 2019 flood insurance study and flood insurance rate maps to be administered by the City of Little Rock as the effective maps, to declare an emergency. An ordinance to authorize the issue of a promissory note to provide short-term financing under Amendment Number 78 to the Arkansas Constitution for the acquisition, construction, and installation of real property and tangible personal property, prescribing other matters pertaining thereto, to declare an emergency. Second reading.
There's a motion and a second to suspend the rules to the third and final reading. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Third reading.
An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to award a sole source maintenance agreement with Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $142,139.05, including applicable taxes and fees, to provide a 12-month maintenance plan for the city's radio infrastructure equipment utilized by the Little Rock Police Department Communications Division. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to award a sole source maintenance agreement to Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $206,000, including applicable taxes and fees for repairs and maintenance on existing portable and mobile radios utilized throughout the city. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid to award a sole source agreement to Motorola Solutions, Inc. in the amount of $135,439, including applicable taxes and fees, to upgrade the software and hardware of the Little Rock Police Department Communication Division's NICE Inform Recorder. An ordinance to amend Chapter 13, Article 2, 1351E5 of the Revised Code of Ordinances of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, to provide the adoption by reference of June 7, 2019 flood insurance study and flood insurance rate maps to be administered by the City of Little Rock as the effective maps, to declare an emergency. An ordinance to authorize the issuance of a promissory note to provide short-term financing under Amendment Number 78 to the Arkansas Constitution for the acquisition, construction, and installation of real property and tangible personal property, prescribing other matters pertaining thereto, to declare an emergency. Third and final reading.
We've now had three readings in regards to moving passage with the ordinances. Are there any questions? Director Wright?
Yes, Mayor, on the, Hope or CDBG funds, or are we there yet? We're not there yet?
We're not there yet.
Okay. I can hold it.
Yes, ma'am. Seeing no other questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. There's a motion for an emergency clause for 11 and 12. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. There's also, we did 11 and 12. Thank you so much. We're now going to move into our public hearing for item number 13. Madam Clerk, would you please read the resolution?
A resolution to approve the sources and uses of the projected 2019 CDBG home and HOPWA funds for inclusion in the city's annual plan and for other purposes.
There's been a motion to move for the adoption of the resolution. Is there a second? There's a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
I had a question too.
Sorry, there were two questions before the motion. Three questions. Director Wright was first.
Yeah.
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Director Hendricks.
I had asked Mr. Moore to provide the entire budget cost, where the money's going. Do you have that?
I think this,
Well, I don't feel it. I don't feel it.
but it's on the screen.
Yeah, but I mean, I wanted Mr. Moore to forward that to me, not today. So I guess I just won't be voting on it.
You would like it forwarded to you? Would you like it today?
Yes.
Mr. James, could you, could we get that information?
Because I know it's going to, whatever's going to happen today.
Victor, please approach the board.
I don't want nothing handed to me at the last minute. But I'll take it. I'll take it. Come on, Victor, bring it here. You all know better than that. Not you, Bruce Moore. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Hendricks. Director Wright?
Yes, Mayor, I want to know where these opportunity zones are.
I know Mr. Collins had to leave. I can kind of give you a general area. Victor, could you answer? The general area is most of the East End, a great portion of downtown Little Rock, and a small portion of Southwest Little Rock.
Yeah, there are 4 of them in Little Rock, and as the mayor said, south of 630 all the way to the East End. I believe the western portion may be Elm, but we do have the maps on the city's website under planning, so the maps are there.
Well, I submitted a proposal for an opportunity zone in Ward 6 for the Barrow area, and it was not approved. So I wanted to make sure that we are not left out of the use of these funds in my eligible areas.
Yeah, the opportunity zones wasn't something the city designated.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I still don't want my constituents not to receive some of these funds because they are eligible according to the rules.
Well, Director Wright, what my team and I are working on and here the next couple of months is to have a thorough work session with the public and also those that are involved in business and industry that have the capital or really the tax liability that they would like to take advantage of the opportunity zones and to recapitalize those dollars into those low-income census tract areas for development. And so what we're going to do, one, is kind of have an education session. This is something that's going on across the nation right now for those who aren't as familiar with those who are part of the opportunity zone process. And so from that standpoint, we believe that may create some individual funds that can work specifically on various projects, but they have to reside in the current opportunity zone roadmap, which was constituted by the governor and Arkansas Economic Development Commission, I believe, and a few other state agencies.
Well, I attended the National League of Cities, and I received the briefing on the opportunity zones. Is the reason why I submitted a proposal for Ward 6 and the Barrow area. I believe it met it. However, we didn't get selected by the governor. But CDBG funds, I do have some eligible areas, and I do not want those areas penalized and not get any of the funds because of these opportunity zones. It's not our fault we weren't selected.
Right. We'll make certain that you're at the table as we're moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to dovetail, I guess, on the point you made, and Victor, you may want to speak to it as well. A lot of these areas are designated by demographic information, correct?
They're designated by low-income census tract status, which
Right.
could have some demographic, but it's based off of the income, which is irrespective of the technicality of the word demographic.
And back to that point, Victor, can you come to the podium, sir? Because with respect to that, Mayor, prior to you being elected, and Victor, I'm not sure, we still have NSP 1 and NSP 2 money available, and that was for the most part designated by demographic information as well. NSP 1 status was to do home repairs. I think NSP 2, we utilize that funding to build new homes in underserved areas. And do we still have access to those federal funds?
Yeah, Mayor, members of the board, just a point of clarification. The Neighborhood Stabilization Program, the first phase was the state agency, Arkansas Development Finance Authority, administered NSP 1, which there were some projects in Little Rock. And it was to acquire abandoned and foreclosed properties.
Yes, sir.
And NSP 2, the City of Little Rock, Metropolitan Housing Alliance, BCD, Habitat were the ones that administered NSP 2. That program has concluded. So we're in the process of closing out the NSP 2 program. So there's no further activity going on with NSP 2.
And did we have any involvement from University District Partnership, ULR? Were they a part of that at all? I know we had Habitat and BCD.
Yeah, I don't believe the University District area was part of the areas that NSP 2 was utilized in.
Is there any kind of way we can get collectively a listing of the number of homes that we built with that funding?
Oh, certainly.
I think we've had a lot of brand new homes kind of helping us improve not just the image, but the infrastructure of certain parts of our community that have been underserved. So if we can get that, I appreciate that, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
And thank you, Director Richardson. We know you played a large role in that, and we really have seen some changes in that area. So thank you for your leadership over the years.
Thank you, sir.
Director Hendricks.
Mr. Victor? I need Mr. Victor. Could you share with me on 27 and 28 the money that's being spent? How will we notify, or can you notify us when something like that's going on in the wards, particularly Ward 1?
27 and 28, what do you
Items 27 and 28 on your budget. Acquisition, rehabilitation, and home buyer assistance. Or even better than that, if you could send,
Yes, I don't have the one that's numbered.
yeah, you can send that.
Which
description
program
to-
is it under?
It's under the home
Okay.
investment.
Yeah, under the home program, the acquisition and rehabilitation, that is specific to low, moderate income people. It doesn't have to be in a particular area. It's just where the city would acquire property and rehab it and sell it to a low income home buyer.
Okay, so did you send those?
We don't have any identified
Oh, I mean,
sites
when
yet.
it starts happening, let me know. Particularly Ward 1.
Well, the way it works, this process, after we have the hearing and you all approve, there's a 30-day comment period for the public that shows the budget. After that is concluded, then we can submit our action plan to HUD for approval. After they approve it, they'll send a grant agreement to the city for signature, and then they'll tell us when we can actually start doing activities.
Okay,
So we still a little ways out.
Okay, so what I'm saying is every move that you make toward the end, I want to be notified of Ward 1. Anything that may be happening in Ward 1.
Okay, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Vice Mayor Wyrick.
Mr. Turner? I wanted to catch you before you went too far. Did you say that there was, part of the opportunity zone was in Southwest Little Rock?
I think the mayor mentioned that.
When I'm looking at, and you referred to a map, City of Little Rock, it's on the City of Little Rock website. Is it the EDC.com map? Is that the one you're talking about? Because this really doesn't delineate very much for me. It does say the census tracts. Is there another map besides the one I'm looking at?
I don't know which one you're looking at, but I do know on our
Check me
planning department's page, you can click on opportunity zones and you can pull up the map.
Okay. So there is one that's different than, this just shows the big map, and then down at the bottom for Pulaski County, it's got opportunity zones for Little Rock and North Little Rock. So there's a better map than that?
Yeah, there's one, you can specifically see what's on the Little Rock side.
Yeah, I think the map you're looking at just shows Pulaski County.
Well, it tells me those census tracts. Okay, I'll look
And
for it.
I can email them to you that we've pulled them off and made some separate maps. that
I
you
think
can-
that'd be a good idea.
Okay, I
Thank
can
you.
email them to everybody.
Thank you very much.
Director Richardson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Turner, can you please come back? Just a little change of direction or paradigm shift. I want to thank you and your staff for the wonderful work you guys have been doing. I really appreciate what you've been doing to try to help improve the landscape and our community overall from a community development standpoint. So I just want to personally thank you for the wonderful work you and your department have been doing.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
Being that there are no agenda cards for this particular agenda item, I'll now call this public hearing now into close. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. The board will now go into executive session for the purpose of making appointments and reappointments to the various city boards and commissions. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. We are now entering into executive session. The board is back from executive session. I will call the meeting back into order. What we discussed are the following commissions and appointments for Age Friendly Little Rock Commission with 15 appointments. We had a couple vacancies. Doris Hendricks will be appointed for Ward 1. Ward 2 is vacant at this point in time. Ward 3 will be Elizabeth Foti. Ward 4 will be Michael D. Harris. Ward 5 is vacant at this time. Ward 6 is Ron Barra. Ward 7 is Mary Jones. At-large position is Dialip Vyas. At-large position, Alfredo Brown. At-large position, Gerald Damaro. At-large position, Ellen Fennell. At-large position, Sandra Stormont. At-large position, Beverly Dunaway. At-large position, Amy Rossi. At-large position, Joan Deho. Commission on Children, Youth, and Families, Dr. Frederick Fields, Matt Price, Chrissy Chatham. Historic District Commission, Ted Holder. MacArthur Military History Museum Commission, Kevin Gorman and Ron Maxwell. Oakland and Fraternal Historic Cemetery Board, Roy Catherine Watts, Gina Campiris Spencer, Christopher Stewart, Carla Hines Coleman, Ernest Moex. Racial and Cultural Diversity Commission, Brian Ward. Sister Cities Commission, Jill McElroy. There's a motion to move. Director Peck.
Would you repeat the last person on Age Friendly?
Joan Dehill, D-I-E-H-L.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deal. We'll get the correct pronunciation. There's a motion and a second to approve the appointments. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. We're now entering into our citizens communication. We have citizens communication from Mr. Ted Atkins.
Mr. Mayor, Board of Directors, I know that we're not supposed to talk about the budget, but we know the budget's extreme, and we have to talk about it. You have been selected to represent the city of Little Rock and make the proper decisions. The question is, what is your footprint going to be? Mr. Mayor, you just freshly got elected. Some of the seats didn't change. What is your footprint going to be? I understand that we've got problems and we've got a deficit we have to make up. What are we looking at instead of cutting out jobs? What is a trolley system? Does that actually benefit us? Are we making money or losing money? That's what we have to do. Figure out what's making us money here. We've lost too many job opportunities from previous establishment. One would be Altel Verizon Arena. Dickie Stevens. We just lost the contract to Amazon. How many other business opportunities have we missed because we want our money now instead of thinking about the future? Our future depends on you and the decisions that you make for us to grow. I thank you for being here. It's a hard job. I understand it. I'm not there. I ran for board of directors. I didn't get elected, but it was God's will. But I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to support you. But I'm asking you that if you need help, we ask each other, and you work as a group instead of individual basis to make this work and make our city run in an efficient manner. And that's including with the police department, the fire department, and budget cuts that we have to make. And I know that we have budget cuts that we don't want to make, but losing jobs isn't one of them. Parks and Recreation, Forestry Division, that brings people in to look at our parks. Brings people here that want to. We want them to move here. We want them to say, hey, I like the way Little Rock looks in that park. I like the way they cut their shrubs, trees, and grass. But it's up to you. I don't think losing jobs. I think we just need to figure out, and it's hard to do, where we're making money and where we're not. I know I was down in the River Market this past weekend. I saw 3 or 4 people riding the trolley, and I sat there for a couple hours watching it. Is that beneficial? How much do we pay those drivers a year? That's one thing. The other thing is, what are we doing in our own homes as a board to cut it back? I thank y'all for letting me talk. And if there's something I can do or something I can help you with, I would appreciate you just call me. As people have my phone number. If you don't, I'll be glad to give it to you. Thank you.
Mr. Atkins, thank you so much. We do appreciate you. Director Hines, did you have a question or a statement?
Not on this after citizen communication.
Mr. Russ Raycott. Mr. Raycott, next time, if you would, please let us know during an active meeting if you will approach the board that way. Please.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Please.
No problem. All right, Mayor. First off, what you've been handed here is a letter from the Arkansas Ethics Commission to Director Doris Wright dated May 14th. And what it states is that she signed an offer of settlement where she agreed that in her capacity as a candidate for the Little Rock City Ward, Director of Ward 6 during the 2018 election cycle, she violated Arkansas Code 76203 by accepting an illegal campaign contribution. Director Wright agreed that she'd violated the law. Her signature is on the last page. She paid a little small $50 fine, but the problem is this, how can we have people on the board who admit that they violate the law running for the office? That undermines the public confidence in that office and in the board, and Director Wright owes the city, the board an apology, the city apology, and the citizens in her ward an apology. Secondly, on transparency, some time ago I had requested information regarding the critical incident video and payments to the design marketing group. And I got a response back that there were none. And I thought that was kind of odd. And the mayor had mentioned in a press conference that it was done by the design marketing group that had worked on his campaign, and it wasn't bid out, they did it quickly. But what the mayor didn't tell you is that his part-time public information officer, Ms. Jackson, is an employee of that company. In fact, that company is run by her husband. And I believe that's a big conflict of interest using that design marketing group for that video. And even more confounding is the receipt for that video is $4,990. How much does it have to be before there's a bid put out for services? I believe that's $5,000. And Mayor, to use a banking term, and I was a bank investigator, this looks like structuring. And the city deserves better than that. And I believe if you're going to have a part-time public information officer, she doesn't need to have these connections with this marketing company. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raycott. Director Wright.
Mayor, I'd like to address the comments that have been made. As my constituents understand, we have finance campaign committees, and my finance treasurer made the mistake of accepting a check from a contributor that he sent in on his business account instead of on his personal account. The check was returned, and that is what she agreed to and I agreed to. And that's the violation that Mr. Raycott is talking about. If you feel that I need to apologize to my constituents, I apologize, but that's all that it was, and that's all that we agreed to.
No, ma'am, you agreed that you violated the law.
Mr. Raycott, I am the candidate, so it's my campaign, so therefore it would be me that would have to sign it. Now, I'm not going to argue with
Mr.
you.
Raycott, your time is up in the
Thank
speaking.
you.
Let's please make certain we respect the decorum of the time allotment.
But I'm making it clear.
You can't have lies, though, Your Honor. You can't have lies.
If need be, if my constituents feel that I need to, I apologize for the mistake and the error that was made. And unfortunately, I know that. I do apologize for the mistake that was made by the campaign treasurer, and we did both meet with the Ethics Commission, Mayor, and it was, as I said, simply a check that a contributor made on his business account, and she did not catch it. And we returned the check, and he reissued the check on his personal account. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor, as we go, I know we're going to recess this meeting in light of our budget amendment that's coming up. Over the past week, since then, I've sent some questions to you, Bruce and Sarah, about some things. There are three things that I'm going to need some answers to before we vote on this next week. One is a second look to see if there's any management cuts we can make within these departments. It was apparent from our rank and file folks that showed up to talk is that we're cutting on the front lines of the folks who are doing the work. And to put it in one of the terms, I'm not sure who the gentleman was that if we're firing all these frontline workers, who are all these managers going to manage? And I think if we fail to take a look at that, as I said earlier, we're not going to get off the merry-go-round. The second one is, what are our police and fire chiefs going to do to curtail our overtime? When we started the mandatory 12-hour shifts and mandatory overtime for our police department over 2 years ago, those were done until we got to a place of full staffing. I hear it from our frontline guys. They're tired of working the 12-hour shifts. Morale is low when it comes to that issue. We got fully staffed at the end of 2018, and here we are 6 months into 2019, and we haven't taken our foot off the gas pedal, even though our crime rates have declined as we were getting fully staffed and using the overtime. So I'd like a response to how our police and fire chiefs are going to get a handle on their overtime hours, since we're not willing to have a reopener, according to yourself and the city manager, with our police unions. The other item is that with the projection of depleting the Public Works Road Fund over the next 5 years, I expect some belt tightening in that department, whether it's efficiencies with outsourcing like our Parks Department's proposing. But I need to have answers to those three as some of the biggest drivers. And it appears to me, I thought we only had two sacred cows. It looks like management in the city is also a sacred cow. So myself as a director up here, I will not make a vote, or I'll vote to defer again until I get answers on those three questions. So hopefully somebody can get those to us over the holiday weekend. That's all I have. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you so much. We'll get you an email with those answers. Director Compuris?
Well, a couple of things. One, as we make these cuts, I would like you and Bruce and Sarah to give us some thoughts about when we're making these stops and making these cuts. As Sarah said, what we're trying to do is balance income with expenditures. But what does that do for us as far as how we're looking towards the future? What's our plan to how we look to the future? Do we have, with these have we taken with these cuts and made various departments unable to move to the future? So are we making the cuts? Is this a short-term situation? Is this a long-term situation? And how are each of our departments going to be able to move forward? And I think that makes a difference on how you look at the way we do things. The second thing is that I don't know our new chief very well. I do know Chief Bewley, and I think that his thoughts about needing to have security for you is good, and is something we need to continue doing. I worry a little bit as we start talking about this,
It's an unfortunate coincidence that it occurs the same time that we're talking about budget and budget cuts. Is there a way to put the officers back at their jobs and simultaneously hire somebody that can fulfill that obligation and not take people off regular duty to do it? Now, again, please understand, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it and that we don't need to do it, but is there a more cost-efficient way of providing that service to do that? And thirdly, is there a more cost-efficient way of putting the car back in narcotics that we're using right now? I don't know the answers to those things. It may be that the level of training and expertise that we need to do that is not something we can hire out, but it is something we need to look at and see if we can do that. So in my opinion, we need to put every policeman to work that's well-trained, and that's where we are. So those are some things. One is a practical question, and the other is I need an answer where, if we make these budget cuts that you've recommended and Bruce has recommended, where does that leave us? And how do you evaluate each division that you have control of now, as far as how it functions into the future and the longevity of that group and prosperity?
Thank you so much. Director Hendricks?
My light is on
She
too.
had her light on first.
Oh, Director Wright?
Mayor, I also want to echo Director Hines with regards to the layoffs. It just appears that we're keeping all the upper management and middle management and laying off staff, and I'm just concerned that I just feel like those cuts should cut both ways. We have a lot of middle managers that when we lay off a lot of this staff, who are they going to be managing, especially in the Parks Department when we're outsourcing? Why would we need all the middle managers? So I'd like us to take a look at that as well.
Yes, ma'am. Director Hendricks?
Thank you. To piggyback on what has been said, the top management, I'd like to know, where do these people live? Are they if they are new employees, where did they migrate from? Do they live in Little Rock? Another thing that I'm really concerned about, and I want to share this with the voters, it only takes 6 votes up here to pass the budget. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And I think the public needs to know that, and you need to get busy and fill up this room. Only 6 votes is what we're needed to pass this. So I said that because it sounds like I'm hearing a threat. You know what I'm saying? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Director Richardson?
Well, Mayor, thank you. I was reluctant to even turn my mic on because I feel uncomfortable about us talking about this budget issue. I think you spoke to some of these questions could be addressed or sent or exchanged via emails, but I'm really uncomfortable about us even having a conversation about the budget tonight when there would be people who would be interested in watching this or hearing this or being in this room, as Director Henderson may mention. And Lance, you and I have a different understanding of the mandatory overtime. I thought that was because of a serious uptick in violent activity. I didn't think it had anything to do with us not having positions filled. And I always thought that mandated overtime was centered around at one point in time where we had a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and even a triple homicide. I think that we had some serious criminal activities that we saw a need to have more of a presence, and it could have been linked to us not having enough officers, but I always thought the mandated overtime was centered around a violent uptick in violent activity and criminal activity in our community. But I think a lot of the questions, Mayor, to all my colleagues, I think you guys raised some valid points, and I think, Mayor, you addressed it when Director Hines made his reference that some of these things could and should be sent and exchanged via email so that you would be able to be better prepared to deal with this, and those of you who are working with this rather than get hit at this at the last minute. So that's my only point I have on that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Richardson. Director Peck?
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to say that I'm interested in getting the emails that Lance and Doris have, some of the points that Director Hines brought up. And if just a point of clarification, because so many people have asked me about War Memorial and Heineman. So the word on the street is that those golf courses are going to be closed and people laid off next week, May 28th. Is that true? I hear that or I get asked that about 2 or 3 times a day.
No, that's not true. Again, as we understand board governance, you and the board make policy decisions and will vote on a budget. At this point in time, management has not decided which golf courses to repurpose. Number one, we need to make very clear no park area is being closed. We own that land. Based on the golf studies that was commissioned on this board back in 2018, the golf study consultants at this board agreed to contract, and they proposed recommendations, and their 2 recommendations did indicate the need to repurpose at least 2 of the 4 due to the lack of revenue, positive revenue, and the 2 that they recommended, and that has also been sent to every member of this entire board, was War Memorial Park and Hyman Park. Now, as we all know, this is the difference of board governance and policy. The policy is that we need to recognize from a budgetary standpoint that at least 2 need to be cut based off of the recommendation that this board contracted someone to look into this in very great detail. And so from a management perspective, as we all know, it's easy to say what you're going to do until you get into the details. There are many things that you have to go into and looking into surveying of property to see if you would repurpose it. What do you repurpose it for? There's different liens on different things or different ownership. And then based on my time, even with the Highway Commission, there's certain things that you think you can do until you figure out, if you go back generations, that if you do utilize that property for a specific purpose that was not agreed to in the 1930s, it could revert back to that family who originally owned it because of eminent domain purposes that they had to give it away. And so again, that goes back to board policy. The board policy would be to establish that at least 2, meaning it could be 1, but no more than 2 or less than 2, but at least 2 would be repurposed. And then management will then look and see what are the best options available from both a budgetary standpoint, a fiduciary standpoint, a legal standpoint, as well as a community standpoint. And as always, I will consult with you, because that's while it is a management decision, I will consult with you, meaning the board members, on a path forward on which 2 are repurposed.
Thanks for the clarification. That was my assumption, but I just wanted to make sure, because there's a lot of confusion with the public.
And then as it relates to those individuals and those families and those city employees that are part of the city family that have potentially, I stress the word potential, because the board has to pass a budget, could be potentially impacted through a layoff. There are also different things that are in place because historically this city board has created a policy that may need to be relooked at of bumping rights. And so it's hard to say a specific person because of those bumping rights. I think we've also talked about that before. In addition to that, what we have done is those that could be potentially impacted, notwithstanding the bumping rights, is that we have notified individuals that, it's a potential, so you want to hear it from your employer first before you see it on the news or you see it on the internet, out of respect and empathy for our city employee families, because we owe that to them. That being said, in the event that this budget amendment is passed, that within that next 30 days or so that possibly would happen, where they will be laid off within that period of time from a budgetary standpoint. So we would start the second half of 2018 on 2019. Thank you, Dean. On 2019, in the order of making certain that we accrue the budget cost savings by having the budget amendment.
Thanks for the clarification.
My pleasure. Vice Mayor Wyrick.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, I talked about that we needed to look at, or I'd ask about the attrition numbers for people leaving the employment of the city, and we all got a package over the weekend that talked about them. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I looked at the first quarter of 2019, and it showed that the first quarter we had 44 people that left under their normal will. Of that group, I threw out 22 because they were public works, police, or fire. And so that would leave us 22 that left of their own will the first quarter of the year. We're talking about going down 44. And so I'm still thinking that through normal attrition that we could get rid of the 44 positions that we want to get rid of. So I want us to take a really good look at that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Director Adcock.
Yes. On the golf courses. So if I understood you correctly, you said that when we pass this budget, then management would decide which 2 golf courses. And then I think at the very end of your talk, you did tell Director Peck that you would ask for our input into it. So I think that at the beginning of your talk, it was management that was going to do it. At the end, you said, well, you might ask for ours. So please tell the public who exactly will decide which 2 golf courses will be closed.
Yes, ma'am. And also, I would like to correct you respectfully. That was in the course of a response, and I shared with Director Peck directly on the question that she asked. And the correct response, as I shared with Director Peck, is that there's a difference between board governance, where the board will make a policy decision of at least 2 golf courses. Then I reiterated that this particular board in 2018 contracted a golf study consultant to look at our courses, and they recommended that if one has to be 2, that would be the best course of action. And if there was a choice between the best course of action of those 2, that it would most likely be Hyman Park and War Memorial, based on the golf study of Dan Snyder and Phil Harrington. They made those decisions, and so from a policy perspective, this particular board would make that decision on the number, being 1, being 2, based on what's been proposed to you for consideration from a board policy. After we move from that governance phase of policy, then management would then make the decision. And of course, management makes a decision based off all of the ready information that's available to he or she at that point in time. And that ready information would include looking at what's in the flood zone, what's a survey, what are there any particular geographical issues that this land was purchased from a family at a particular point in time, that if it has to be used for a certain source, if not, it has to revert back to the family. And after doing all of that due diligence and research, then management will make a decision in consultation with the board.
And in all of that, there was one thing that I feel like respectfully that you left out, and that was the citizens, the people. We have not had a time when the citizens can come up here that play golf and have some ideas and talk to us about how they feel, what they think. We're taking 2 people's word on which ones they think should be closed and not listening to our citizens. And I would like to recommend that before we do that, that we have a time that the citizens can talk, because I think that you'll find that a lot of them have some good ideas. One that I've heard is we're getting ready to go into the peak time to get money off of our golf courses in the spring and in the summer months. So if we close these within 30 days, we are giving up the revenue that we could get that we waited for all winter, and we're giving up the revenue that we could get in the spring and the summer on our golf courses. So I'd like to suggest that we might want to look until the fall, September or October, before we start closing the golf courses.
I will definitely take your suggestions under consideration, but also I want to reiterate, we agree, the citizens have an endpoint. We are elected officials that are elected by citizens, and I believe just like citizens contact you and other board members, they also contact me, so we are listening to the citizens. We will take some of your suggestions under strong consideration, and again, any decision that's made will be made in consultation with this board as well as with the citizens.
Okay. One last thing. Each of you received one of these at your desk tonight. This is the new pen that we had that we took to California. Director Wright and I went to California last week, and we talked to the people. The mayor gave us a wonderful video inviting everyone to come to Little Rock in 2020 for the NUSA conference. It will be in May of 2020. This is a pen that we gave out, and I knew that each of you would want one to be wearing to talk to the people, the citizens in Little Rock, about being part of NUSA 2020. We need about 200 volunteers. We've got wonderful committee chairs, and so we are sending out a message to everyone not only to attend the conference, but to come and be a volunteer with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Adcock. Director Hines.
Motion to recess until next Tuesday at 4 p.m., Mayor.
After you answer all the lights is on.
That question is Director Hendricks.
I wanted to ask you if you have considered those persons who are 65 years and older. Are they included in the cut that we're doing?
I will.
Let me share
yes,
this
ma'am.
with you. I talked to Sarah because I've had several employees that have been here over 40 years. They're afraid to come up and say that they want to retire. So encourage these people that are over 65 years of age that's been here 30 and 40 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Let them go home.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that recommendation.
Let them go home. It wouldn't cost us anything.
Yes, ma'am. There's been a motion to recess to May 28th. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned. Meeting recessed. Meeting recessed.